All right, everybody, back with another one. Today we're going to talk about the news. We're not going to do a deep dive into anything specific. We're just going to kind of focus on the news today. I think in the world that we live in, it's important to kind of help people gravitate towards the media companies and websites that are offering, uh, mostly unbiased information. Obviously, everybody's going to have an agenda. Every company and website, news media organization at this point today is going to lean one way or another because America is so divided and everything is so polarizing, especially around all of the issues that are going on right now, with things that affect, the average American across the board, like tariffs, some of the wars that are going on in the other countries, and other things that are, being uncovered by the Doge administration. So the media companies are going to sort of lean one way or another just by default because they're made up of people. They're made up of people who have opinions. The media was always supposed to be unbiased because that's how they can stay out of, politics and choosing a side and report the news fairly to the people. That's why they're pretty much the only business that's protected by the Constitution. So although it is important that the media stays unbiased, the reality of the world is, like I said, that it's made up of people. People write those articles. People own the company. People, are the staff and employees of that company, and they are going to have opinions. Now, if you have a good media company, you'll typically have a divided company where a majority of the company might lean one way. You might have 51%, 52% lean to the left or the right, and then the remaining 48, 49% lean to the opposite side. Um, that's typically a good company because then there's always going to be that internal struggle to actually get to the core of the truth of what they're reporting on. Because if if the majority of the company are Republicans, you're always going to hear things that glorify the Republicans and vice versa for the Democrats. But if the people who work there and, just because it's the news doesn't mean that it's not still, media and entertainment. There are a lot of people that are liberal that work in the entertainment industry in all different capacities. Not everybody goes to Hollywood to make movies. There are plenty of people that are liberals that work in the news, and some of them might even work at conservative media companies because that's where they got the job, and they just, had to accept it because it was paying, and that was their way of making a livelihood. So it's good when a media company does have different, a makeup of different types of people from all different voting bases, whether it be, Republican, Democrat, typical, but also, libertarians, independents, and many others. So it is good to have that balance in media, but typically today you are going to see a lot of people lean one way or another. And unfortunately, the majority of the left media, meaning people who lean Democrat or liberal, um, they're biased, but they're biased in a way where they're not telling the truth. They're purposely swaying the news to not glorify their candidate or their politics, flat out lie about them in order to brainwash or convince the American people the message, the agenda that they're trying to get across. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some alternative media companies that are not mainstream. They're not CNN, they're not ABC, but they're also not Fox News. They're going to be some other companies that, maybe lean more right, uh, because typically conservatives tend to be more honest when it comes to the news. They might not always tell the truth, and they might, um, post things that, like I said, do glorify their candidates or their politics more, but they do tend to report on the news honestly because they know that credibility is the most important thing a media company has. If you lose your credibility, it's game over. There's too many other companies out there to compete with, and credibility is the thing that keeps the audience coming back for more. This is why you're seeing a lot of the, people who watch the news, who consume the news, who were like habitual audience members, not just people who catch it in passing, have been leaving a lot of the dinosaur media, a lot of the household names, and going to alternatives online in some fashion. They're losing their audiences. This is why you see YouTubers who have a bigger viewership per video than the major mainstream media companies have during their live news cycles. So there's a shift happening, and it's a good thing, but it's going to actually it's going to change the trajectory of how we consume news going forward in the future. The older generations, the boomers, they're the ones that are still clinging on to the dinosaur media, and they're clinging on to getting that through cable television because that's what they're familiar with, that's what they know, that's what they grew up with, and it's very hard for them to break that cycle. They're typically the only ones that even still have cable. If it wasn't for the boomer generation, the cable companies probably would all be bankrupt at this point and either shut down or sold off to other countries where they still utilize, cable news. Um, or just, pivot to an online method of delivering their information. But as the boomers begin to age out, they're going, people are going to have to go somewhere else for their media. They're going to have to go, find websites or, other platforms that are giving them the news that they can trust and that they can get accurate information from for whatever topic they're learning about. The problem is we've become a lazy culture, and you have a lot of people who are just scrolling through social media, whether it be Instagram, X, whatever, and just looking at other people say things and taking that as news, or they're looking at headlines from actual news articles, reading the headline, and then moving on, now retaining that information and considering it them to know what happened in that situation. A lot of times headlines are written in sort of like a clickbaity way, where they're trying to get you to come to a conclusion just from the headline alone. And I understand why people do that. There's just so much stuff on the internet, it's hard not to write headlines in that way to draw people's attention to the article. As long as what you're saying in the headline, even if it is true, is in the article, there's nothing wrong with that. Then it's not clickbait. A lot of people think that just because you word a headline in a certain way that it's automatically clickbait. No, if the contents of the article are match the headline, that's fine. It's just like the thumbnails on YouTube or videos. If what you see in the thumbnail is actually spoken about or referenced in some capacity in the video itself, it's not clickbait. It's just a good thumbnail to attract the attention of an audience. But a lot of times people will put up thumbnails that have nothing to do with the video. That image or that information has never made it into the actual video, and it was just specifically designed to bait you into clicking on the video. That's why it's called clickbait. So the younger generations, especially Gen Z, is guilty of this. They will just scroll and listen to what other people are saying online, whether it be a celebrity or just a person who has a big social media following, or like I said, you can just see a thumbnail with the headline to an article. You can click on it, but they don't click on it, and then they just whatever the headline says is what they came to the conclusion of in their mind, and they move on, and now they start regurgitating that stuff out in the world, telling people, that this is what's happening. Meanwhile, they didn't even actually read the article. So this is definitely going to be something that we have to look out for in the future, where people are going to become so comfortable with the idea of not actually knowing anything, but thinking they do, just because they briefly surmised it online or on social media, on the news, whatever. You have to actually do the research. And if you're the type of person that doesn't care, you don't have the time in your life, that's perfectly fine. The problem lies when we start telling the rest of the world or other people in our circles that, this is what we learned. Meanwhile, you didn't actually take the time to learn it. This is why you have so many young people today in colleges that are, or even out of college, that are speaking about things that they have no idea about, regurgitating information that they heard from someone else somewhere, even though it's completely not factual, and standing behind it as though it's the truth. We're raising a generation of younger people who are not taking the time to actually do the research and learn what's going on in the world. And this poses a problem because it goes back to our constitutional republic. The Constitution and this governing system in our country was designed and said so by the founding fathers for a well-informed people, a people who stay up to date on what's going on in the world and are educated not just in the school sense where you go to school, you get a degree, in a sense where you're well-rounded. You know a little bit about each topic. you know a little bit about what's going on in the world in many different capacities, and you're able to have a conversation with pretty much anybody about at least one or two things. That's a well-rounded person in terms of knowledge with information. But we're raising a younger generation of people who really don't know much but think they do, and they're arrogant so much to think they're smarter than the previous generations just because they're able to cram more information more quickly into their brains, even if the information is not accurate. So this raises a problem for, like I said, our government and our system of way of life in America going forward. If the American people become dumber and less informed, we're not going to fulfill the demand that the founding fathers made when they said that the constitutional republic system is for well-informed people. We need to stay informed in order to continue this legacy that is America. It's like I said, though, America is kind of heading down that road of becoming Idiocracy, that movie, where people are just getting dumber and dumber, but are more arrogant, thinking they're smarter, thinking that they're, more intelligent. And now we're getting into a world with AI, and we're going to be leaning heavily on the AI and algorithms to tell us the facts and provide us with the sources for the facts. And for a lot of people, that's going to become good enough. They're not even going to go look at the sources or try and follow that trail to make sure the information that the chat gpt and different ais are giving to us to make sure it's 100% accurate. So it plays into the theme for today that we really have to take a look at what are the news sources that are out there that we should be looking at for our information going forward. Now, anything I show you today, I'm not getting paid for, and I'm not a sponsor of. I have no affiliation with these companies as of this moment, but I do consume their content because I believe that they put out credible content that can be, backed up by researching, that can be backed up and is verified to be true for the most part. Every once in a while, media company makes mistakes. Don't forget, things are written by people. People make mistakes. Robots do too. So don't think that mistakes are not going to come with AI. They will. But I just wanted to give the younger audience a chance to see an opportunity to learn about some alternative media sources, to go find the information for themselves, because I don't think a lot of young people know these platforms, these media companies, and there are many out there that are good that have actually come up just over the last 20 years that have been direct competitors to the mainstream media conglomerates that are in place now. And this is a good thing because America, like I said, was designed, in previous videos, I've said this, where things are supposed to be fractured throughout the country. You're not supposed to have centralized, organizations or companies that control everything. God forbid monopolies. I mean, we actually have anti-monopoly laws in America. So things do need to be spread out equally throughout the people, and not always equally. Some will have more than others, because it gives the free market the ability to thrive. It gives the, competition is a great thing where the companies have to stay truthful, like I said, keep their integrity, stay honest in order to continue to win the eyeballs of their audience. But there are many companies out there that have come up over the last, 10, 20 years, some of them just since Donald Trump took office the first time. And they were inspired by him to, and his whole movement to start their organization. I'm not going to talk about every single one that I read today. I'm just going to do a handful, and we'll look at some articles from them, kind of run through those, do a little bit of commentary, and this will hopefully just give the younger generation an idea of where to go outside of your mainstream, media channels like Fox and CNN and ABC and CBS, in terms of news, and also outside of just scrolling through social media and looking at a person write a tweet on X and then take a picture of the tweet and then post it on Instagram. And now in your brain, you're processing that as it has more credibility because it's like an article snippet where they're taking something from something else, repackaging it, and putting it on Instagram. So it must have more credibility rather than them just writing it on Instagram. There is some sort of trick to the brain where that, there's a process and a method behind doing that. I do see that some people um, equate that as equivalent to uh, the thumbnail of an article with the headline and they look at that as two of the same thing. It's not the same thing. It's just one person writing their thoughts or opinions on X and then repackaging it on Instagram. An article that was written by a writer or a journalist is usually thoroughly researched before they put it together. It goes through an editing process with usually a team of people, and then when it's finally confirmed, they publish it on their website and then share it on their social media channels. So, that gives a lot more credibility to the media platforms than to just random people on the internet who are, posting their thoughts. Now, don't get me wrong, to many people, I'm just a random person on the internet. I'm not judging. I'm just saying this is the type of stuff that happens. And I hear many, many people tell me um, things that they think are facts just because they read it online. Now, I completely understand all of these websites are online and they're all, just people who write words on a page that goes on a screen and then goes to your phone or whatever. I get that, but the layers of process of verification is what gives them more credibility, and that's kind of what we're looking at today, is finding those credible news sources and through that finding which ones you prefer for whichever topics you like. So without further ado, we'll start today with this one I want to take a look at now because it has a cool feature. I've been using it for a little bit now, and I like what this platform has to offer in terms of fair and balanced news. So this one's VT News. This one I like a lot because they're not so much a media company where they're writing these articles themselves. They're actually connecting the audience to other websites that are publishing their articles and just finding a way to balance it for you in terms of which way the media organization leans politically so that you can decide um, whether or not you want to view their content and also what their bias is for that specific topic or article that you're reading. And this is VT News, put out by Valuetainment. If you don't know Valuetainment by now, check out Patrick Bet David, the PPD podcast, and all that whole crew. I've done some videos here on the past where we did like a review or a commentary of some of the podcasts. Or I like Patrick's podcast. I think he does a great job. I think this website is a really cool thing. There are some others that are similar that are doing this now using AI to sort of aid them in this. But I think this is probably going to be the future of news because disseminating between which media companies to trust and based on which way they lean politically is going to be a huge way to give certain media companies credibility over certain conversations, topics, and news items. So if you're looking for a website that, like I said, offers a really unbiased way of connecting the audience to the news based on their politics, I highly recommend this website. I think it's really cool. I like the way that they have this, laid out here, and you can even see right here on the articles themselves on the thumbnail, there is a scale basically that shows the audience which way this media company or the coverage of it leans. The title right here is Judge Rules to Restore AP's White House Access, and the coverage of this is 44% left leaning, so it's a majority left leaning. But it also does show you 33% right, and then center 22%, and it has a bunch of sources for you in order categorized by how they lean politically. So this is great because this gives people the chance to decide which ones they want to click on to go read about this topic. So it gives people the opportunity to decide which media organization's content they want to read. As you can see here, left leaning, LA Times, Yahoo News, NPR, all these other websites here, and even Associated Press, who the article is about. Then you have right sources here, Fox News right there, Telegraph. It kind of surprised me, the Wall Street Journal, but I do understand probably why that's listed as that. And unrated, meaning um, not really sure to determine which way they lean because they probably are really more truly unbiased than anything, or they just don't typically talk about topics that make them lean in a certain direction. And so it says on the left here, coverage details, different media companies that covered this topic. Total news sources 35, left leaning 12, center 6, right 9, and unrated 8. So it's got a really cool breakdown. It really does give the audience the ability to decide which coverage they would like to see of this based on uh, which media companies' politics align with the viewers. And as you can see here on the home screen, you got a whole bunch of different topics that you can read about: Ukraine, sports-related news, all different types of things. There's a premium membership, topics here, review more here, and more articles down here. One thing I do want to say that I think is really cool that's going on right now is they have a little first 100 days of Trump's presidency, kind of like a game, like a questionnaire game, where you vote on questions that they are presenting as hypotheticals for stuff that will likely come to fruition in Trump's first 100 days in office. So it's like a fun game to play here, and they're at day 80 right now, out of the 100 days. So you still have 20 days left to vote and be part of that fun thing. And they even have their virtual AI assistant right here, and you can literally ask it questions, kind of like a Chat GPT plugin, where you could ask it questions um, to help you find news items that you're looking for quicker. So this is a great resource if you're looking for um, access to the news, especially if you're looking to get updates on the news quickly and efficiently, because that's typically what I look to do. I like to, you know, find out what's going on for the day or the week or the month or whatever, and get that information quickly so that I'm not constantly consumed by news. I like to just run through it and see what's going on in the world, just to stay informed. So if you're looking for, quick way to get the news and digest it and get the information, but also to, like I said previously, actually do the work, read the articles, find out what's going on. If it's something that is of importance to you, you can hone in on that one and do a little bit more research to make sure that you really understand what's going on. If it's something that's less important that you just kind of want to, get an update on, like a celebrity passed away or something, that sometimes is stuff you just quickly research, with something like the AI chatbot, and ask them, any notable people died today in the news or something, and maybe it'll pop up with top recommendations. But it's a great resource. I recommend it. I use it, and it is just something that I think will probably be a big part of the future of the news. Because, like I said, it will help people disseminate a lot of this information and decide, which resources they want to go to. And I also kind of feel that it'll play a role in helping weed out some of the less credible media companies in the future, because people are going to be pushed towards a handful of media organizations based on which ones are credible and which ones are, laid out here as leaning a direction of the viewers' politics that the viewers are interested in, and many other features as well. I think that this is probably going to play a role in helping weed out some of the nonsense media companies and allow the people to focus in on the ones that are the most credible and the ones that are, covering topics that the, viewers want to see. So we'll see how this plays out in the future, but I like this website myself. Like I said, I think there may be one or two other ones that are notable that are similar in the sense that they use AI to help the audience determine, breakdown of which ones lean left, right, center, all that stuff. So check that out yourself if you want. Next one is Breitbart. That was one of the ones that was mentioned as a credible source in that, right-leaning source specifically, but in that previous article we were looking at. And they've been around a while. If you don't know about Breitbart, go research their history. And Andrew Breitbart, he was a real important figure in the media, and what he set up was important for the future of media, competing with the mainstream media. He was one of the earlier ones to do it, and he left a legacy. He's gone now, but he left a legacy with Breitbart, and it still today remains a relatively credible company that puts out, good media and true and honest, um, information and news to the people without being too biased. They do definitely lean right, and that's, for sure. We we know that by now. Um, but they, just report on the news like any typical news company should, giving the people the information about what's going on. So we'll take a look at this right now. This is a popular topic that's kind of going overlooked because there's so many other things with the tariffs and other stuff like that. But the good news is, Kristi Noem, who is, heading up DHS and the ICE deportation, she did an ICE deportation raid in Arizona. So the Trump administration is actively working to, mitigate and resolve our um, migrant crisis in this country that the Biden administration allowed, with millions of people flooding in through the borders, um, to hopefully be the Democrats' future voter base and hopefully lock in the elections for them indefinitely. Thank God that failed, because we would no longer have elections in this country, and it would just always be a Democrat that would win forever going forward. And that was their plan, and they were very close. But they've been working on this, so a lot of people have been distracted. I do see some conservatives online saying that he's not deporting the illegals fast enough and all this other stuff. But you got to understand that he's working on a bunch of different things. He has a team in place that's handling this issue, and between Tom Homan and Chris Noem, they're doing a great job at resolving this problem. And don't forget too, like, the people are not just waiting around for the government to come pick them up. They're doing everything they can to avoid being caught. Hiding, moving, relocating, maybe changing their identity. Like, they're doing everything they can to try and avoid deportation. So it's going to take time. And there were millions that came into this country over the course of those 4 years. So it's a significant percent of the population at this point. It could be as high as 10% of the entire American population is illegal immigrants. That is detrimental for the future of this nation, for sure, for our constitutional republic, but for the safety and security and also economics of our nation. How do we economically support that influx of people without taking jobs from Americans? So there's a lot of problems that came from that, but they are still actively deporting people, and this is probably going to take Trump's entire term to resolve, but you know, we will see how it goes. Not to be a hypocrite, we're going to read a little bit of this because I don't want to just look at the headline and do exactly what I said for the younger people to not do. But for some of these, we probably won't read the article. We will just look at the headline. I'm just, making a point today that, this is where you can go to look for that information. But Department of Homeland Security, DHS, Secretary Kristi Noem led an immigration and customs enforcement ICE deportation raid in Arizona Tuesday. I give her a lot of credit too, because she is one tough cookie. Like, there are some women that are just built different. And, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There's a lot of people on the internet today that they're split on some things in terms of, like, the masculine feminine dynamic, where there are a lot of women today that are like boss babes, and they just want to, go out and build careers and have a man that's like their sidekick. And then there are, some, um, women that are pushing the trad wife movement, saying that women should stay at home and just be housewives and not do anything else in society. I am not going to give an opinion on that today, but I do think that there are just some women that are inherently born tougher, or maybe molded that way by their fathers. And they're just able to do things that a lot of average men today are not able or willing to do. But that's really a reflection on men today. If a woman being put in a position to be strong, assertive, go after really, really bad criminals that are super dangerous to the average American, and actually doing it physically in person without fear, going to the jail, standing in front of them, taking pictures. Obviously she knows that if she was caught in an alley with them, there would be no match, because she has the law enforcement behind her. She's not afraid. But either way, she does not seem like the type of person that's afraid. I'm assuming, and I don't know really much about her, but she probably had a really strong father that raised her in that way. But it's a rarity to see women be that tough. But what's even worse is it just goes to show you how damaged our culture is with men, that they're so weak today. They are perfectly comfortable with seeing a woman have to do that position. Then, while they're sitting home playing video games with their friends at 35 years old, um, or trying to, do TikTok dance videos, instead of getting out there and earning a living and doing something real and important for America is going to help continue uh, this American way of life for, maybe their children one day and their grandchildren, their legacy that they're going to be able to pass all this down to. So yes, there is definitely something to be said about the state of the male-female dynamic today, and we're probably going to talk about that in the future video because I do see that as a very common topic, especially with certain pundits, or not even pundits, just people in the media, mainstream or on the internet, alternative media or influencers that do talk about this often. So I'll probably do a video about that in the future, but let's get back to this article. According to the New York Post, Nome led about 100 federal agents in an early morning raid in Phoenix during the multi-agency raid, which was led by Phoenix ICE agents. 3 illegal aliens who were wanted on charges relating to weapons and drug offenses to running a money laundering operation were captured, according to the outlet. That's great. Win for ICE and DHS, and a lot of times they'll do this too. They'll put a little Twitter post in here. It's another good account to follow. Libs of TikTok. They do actually put out a lot of good content that is accurate and could be backed up. That's one of the few that is not just something that you can scroll. It is actually something that you could just scroll through and see, what they posted, and it will likely be factual without having to do the deep research. But for the most part, I would recommend just, reading the articles or watching the actual news stories on the news. But essentially, yeah, this is just about them, doing that raid early in the morning, catching a bunch of bad guys, and that are wanted for actual federal crimes or major crimes, and hopefully deporting them. So that is Breitbart. Next one you have is Gateway Pundit. Now they started out years ago. A lot of people were saying that they were not legitimate. They didn't really post fully accurate information or news stories, and I think they've definitely gotten better over the years. I want to say their content has gotten a lot better, and I think they're one of the more top viewed in terms of alternative or right leaning independent media. Um, and they do tend to post good articles with factual information. So I would definitely add them to your list too. Incoming Doge team makes huge discovery to be revealed soon. So, I mean, I don't know what could be a huge discovery because they've already made a ton of huge discoveries, which we've gone into on this channel before with the Social Security Administration and many of the other things. We'll see what goes on with the Pentagon and the military and all that stuff, but at some point I'll probably do a video on that as well. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt on Tuesday revealed Elon Musk's Doge team made a huge discovery. There has been discovery. I hate to leave you hanging on a cliff, but I don't want to go get ahead of the president on that. But I can confirm there has been a discovery, but it's just not quite ready for release. So that's pretty much what she said. Different video, it's probably the exact same. Yeah, so it was pretty much just what we read. But okay, it seems like something's coming down the pipe. Let's see what the rest of this says. We found hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud, abuse, and waste. They're still going strong. They found something today. That is horrible. It's horrible, Trump said. So Trump said that now. So that's interesting. Yeah. All right. So seems like, let's see what he had to say.
Sir, do you have a sense of how long Elon Musk's mission will last and when he will depart?
Well, Elon is fantastic. And I think he's a patriot, and I think it's a shame what they're doing with his car company. And a great car. It's a great car, great product. And it tells you what a patriot he is. He's amazing. No, I mean, as long as he'd like. I like smart people, and he's a smart person. I also like him personally. When he endorsed me, that's when I really got to know him. I knew him a little bit before that, but not much. And then he endorsed me. And it was a very strong, embracing endorsement, as we all know. And I would say Elon will stay for a certain period of time, and then he's going to want to get back to his businesses full time. but he's done a fantastic job. We found hundreds of, think of it, just hundreds of, we found millions of dollars of fraud and abuse and waste, and they're still going. I mean, they're going strong. They found something today that's horrible. It's horrible. So what they found, well, you'll find out very soon. What they found is incredible, and I give him a lot of credit. He's got some very smart people with him.
Do you think he can
And
finish?
they're working very closely with our secretaries and the people that are the heads of.
Do you
Do
think
you think you would appoint him to another position once his 130
Well, I
days?
would. I think Elon's great, but he also has a company to run or a number of companies to run. You know, that he can do this, that he can find the time. He loves the country. That's why he does it. But we're in no rush. But there'll be a point at which time Elon's going to have to leave.
Sir,
But
he's
even
an auto
auto
company, a
companies-
specific date. on when he's out.
I would think a few months.
Even when Elon leaves and goes back to being CEO, will Doge stick around in some kind of capacity?
Yeah, it'll still Doge itself. Yeah. At
What
some
does that look
point,
like?
just so you understand, I don't want to get it wrong. I want Elon to stay as long as possible. Number one, I like him. Number two, he's doing a great job. Number three, he is a patriot. That's why he's doing this, and he's, it's very costly for him. But so I want him to stay as long as possible. But there'll be a point where he's going to have to leave, and when he does, the secretaries will take totally over, and Doge will stay active. We have a lot of smart people. A lot of those people, I believe, are going to go into the agencies, and they'll work on it from the inside.
Interesting. So he's even saying, as far as after Doge, some of these people might end up, getting positions, I guess, in different agencies in the government. Maybe some of them that they audited and go in and internally fix them. Also, too, like it's not all just Elon. A lot of people are looking at it like trying to make bad news out of it. Like Elon stepped down. There's turmoil between him and Trump. Well, you heard it right there. Again, this is why it's good to go to credible news sources. I did mention Fox is one of the dinosaur media companies, but they do still put out good content because they do have close connections to a lot of big players, including Trump, and they are going to get accurate information. It's just that they lean very, very far right, or at least now today they've kind of drifted more center ever since Roger Ailes passed away. Um, so uh, it's good sometimes to just go to alternative media. I'm not saying you can't go to the, old mainstream media ever. I do think it's good to kind of hear everything. But some of them are just so biased today and so clearly corrupted, especially with some of the findings that Doge found with U.S. aid funding a lot of these media companies. So they technically were propaganda arms of the government. It's not best to go to those media companies because they are going to lie to you because they have an agenda. Um, it's one thing to be biased because you have an agenda for your, business model. It's another thing to completely lie to the people because you're a propaganda arm of the government. That's a problem. And that's exactly not what the media was designed to be when the Constitution was created and the First Amendment was put together to protect the press. But like I said, a lot of people are trying to create this rift between Elon and Trump, and the truth is, Elon has to get back to all his companies that he's running. Think of this: this guy's running some of the biggest companies in the world, not even just America, and he took time out of his, life, which is, chaotic in itself, to, do this deep dive into talk about a deep dive. I don't think there's ever been a more deep dive in American history than what Elon has done with Doge. Literally digging into the books of every major government organization or department. Um, that is takes a tremendous amount of courage because don't forget a lot of people do not want him peeking into those books. But it also takes a lot of time and energy and effort. And for a man that's running all these companies that his entire net worth relies on, which made him the richest man in the world today, he has to get back to those. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the situation between him and Trump. And clearly, you just heard right there that Trump likes him, and it didn't come off political; it came off genuine. So I believe him when Trump says that. But Elon had a job to do. That's the thing about people too. Like they're looking at it like it's a bad thing that he's leaving. That's how the government was designed. That's why we have certain positions have term limits and certain positions don't, because the government was designed for people to go in, do their job, and get out, not stay in power and become a king. That's why we have this system where things are operating, at differentials separate from each position in office. It keeps it to where you really can't create like this total uniformity in the government where we're living in a dictatorship. Although the Democrats got us pretty close, I must say. That was a pretty good job that they did with, totally, conquering the government as much as they possibly could. We were still able to sneak a few decent Americans into the government, and foil their plan. But for the most part, they did a pretty good job at taking this, really, really solid system that the founders gave us and completely corrupting it. Um, but yeah, you know, uh, that's a good source. Gateway Pundit, they've gotten much better over the years, and I think that their you know, quality of articles and stuff is excellent, excellent resource to go to for some of your news. Now we're going to check out a less popular one today for the younger people. But I grew up on him, and I think that um, he is one of the greatest national treasures that this country has ever seen. And he is at a status for me and for many libertarian minded people out there. I'm not a libertarian, but I know that many people are, who love him, is Ron Paul. Ron Paul is one of the most important figures in American government in the last, 100 years plus. And I've said this in the past, and I truly mean it. If it wasn't for Ron Paul and the movement behind him, you would have never seen a Trump presidency. Ron Paul was um, the one that got the candle lit. Trump just took it to the next level by pouring gasoline on it. But Ron Paul definitely paved the way for a lot of what you see today. A lot of what you see today with politics in America. And he's much older now. He's in his, I think, 90s. But at one point he was an amazing congressman. He was a great representative in the government, and he has his website, Ron Paul Institute, where they post news. I highly recommend going there for really solid and sound, credible news, resources, but also some good opinion pieces as well. Um, let's take a look at this one. This is a hot topic that a lot of people are talking about today. There's all this like fear amongst different people that, Trump's trying to be this dictator and stay in forever. Meanwhile, the man's 78 years old. He literally couldn't stay in forever. At best, he'd have like 20 more years. Um, but by the time many of you are older, he'd be dead already. So that's not going to happen. If you know your history, you'll know that FDR was the pretty much the only president to ever not keep to the tradition of a two-term presidency set up by George Washington. Now, a lot of people thought before this time that this was the law, or the way that everything was written when the Constitution was put together. That wasn't the case. Washington stepped down after his second term because he didn't want to become a king, and he didn't want the American system to basically follow in the Great British system of having a monarchy, a king at the top. It would basically ruin everything they put together with the Constitution. So he purposely stepped down and set that precedent, but it was never law. So when FDR came in, a Democrat, by the way, who was one of the worst presidents in the 1900s for some of the policies that came out of his administration, he was good in other ways, but for some of the policies that came out of his administration, definitely not a good thing. And there's a lot of debate there, but we don't need to go into all that today. But he actually was president, ran not just 3 but 4 terms. And then after that, and I've done a little bit of this in previous videos where I kind of broke down, those 4 terms and how his popularity began to wane after the second term and really started going downhill. Um, at that time, it was a controversial situation. World War II was going on, or at least heating up and then going on. So the people, voted to keep him in, pretty much unanimously because they just, knew that we were going to go to this major world war, and that's the leader that they chose. So no problem. But he actually stayed for 4 terms and set a precedent where it really angered a lot of people. and they decided to officially make it a constitutional rule that you cannot be a president for more than 2 terms. So they went back to what Washington had originally put in place, which is excellent. And ever since then, you need a 2/3 vote from Congress to have a president have a third term. This is designed in a way where it's not completely not allowed, because if there is some sort of major situation going on in the world and the leader that we have is the only way for us to get out of it, there are always exceptions to rules. So this would give the president the ability to stay in for a third term in order to thwart that threat that would potentially ruin America. And so that's why a lot of people are talking about this as Trump taking a third term. Now, will Trump take a third term? I don't know. Nobody knows. I know they're working towards this, but I can tell you one thing. The only way he would get a third term is if he gets a 2/3 vote from Congress. So he absolutely needs that in order to do it. And right now, he doesn't have 2/3 majority of Congress with the Republicans or even pro-Trump people, because there are some Republicans that have been voting against him while he's in office in the second term, basically acting like rhinos and, voting against him and his agenda for certain things. So he has definitely less than 2/3 of Congress on his side. So I don't see how he's going to get this done unless when the midterms come, we win, the government at least wins a majority of Republicans by far. And that would only happen through an act of God. So if God decides Trump's going to have a third term, then during the midterms, you're going to see a lot of Republicans flip the seats of the Democrats that were holding them for all these years, and it's going to be unprecedented. If that happens, I would say Trump probably takes a third term. But if that doesn't happen, I find it highly unlikely unless they find some other loophole through, the government where they could figure this out in some way. But as far as I know, you need a 2/3 vote from Congress. He doesn't have that right now. I just don't see it happening. But there's a lot of controversy around it, so I wanted to take a quick look at this article. Pundits are having a difficult time understanding how Trump would fulfill his expressed desire to serve a third term as president. Some of them have fallen back on the possibility that he's joking and just trolling his critics. Others have come up with unlikely scenarios for achieving a third term. For example, one commentator asked Trump whether he planned to have JD run as president with Trump as his vice president running mate. Under the scenario, Vance would resign immediately after the election, thereby elevating Trump to the presidency. However, there are two problems with this scenario. One, Trump couldn't trust Vance to fulfill his part of the bargain. What if Vance changed his mind and decided to remain as president? That would leave Trump as vice president for the next 4 years. He wouldn't be a very happy vice president. That's actually true. Trump's not like that. He can't be second in command. That's the position Vice President Garner said is not worth a bucket of warm spit. I don't like that. Two, the 12th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution prohibits someone from being vice president, a vice presidential candidate if he is ineligible to serve as president. The 22nd Amendment, which prohibits someone from being elected president more than twice, renders Trump ineligible to run as president. So, see, that's an important thing that they don't tell you. These people will try and make up these conspiracies like this is the real, a lot of these like Q people online. This is how he's going to do it. He's going to sneak in his, that's why he brought in Vance. He's going to sneak in his VP, and it can't be done because the 22nd Amendment doesn't allow it. If you're ineligible to even be president, you can't be vice president. Why? Vice president is the backup president. If something happens to the president, the vice president becomes the president and then takes over. That's why you hold that position, that and a few other things. But you're basically like the backup guy if something happens to the main guy. That's what you are, right? You're like a backup singer for the lead. Now, if you're not eligible to even be president, you can't be vice president because in the event something happens, you would become president again. Don't you think the founders or not 22nd Amendment wasn't around that time, but the government during that time that put this amendment in place, don't you think they thought about that ahead of time before they actually uh made it, put it into the Constitution? Trumpsters have raised the possibility of a constitutional amendment that would enable Trump to seek a third term. The problem there is that such an amendment would have to be passed by a 2/3 vote in both the House of Congress and then ratified by 3/4 of the states. I forgot to mention that part, by the way. That simply is not going to happen, and certainly not within the next 3 years. And that's exactly what I said. He needs a two-thirds vote, unless the midterms are a total red wave, like they thought we were going to have in 2020. Um, Obviously there was fraud and stuff we know, but uh, unless there is a major red wave and then all those people, or at least a majority of them, are on Trump's side, um, vote two-thirds in Trump's favor of having a third term, it's likely not going to happen. And then also it needs to be ratified by 3/4 of the states. So that's another thing too, because you don't have 3/4 of the country as being true red Republican or conservative states. Uh, Many of them are Republican, many are Democrat, but there are many that flip back and forth every couple elections. So you really don't know. But yeah, this seems like a great article. Again, this is very accurate information about the constitutionality of whether or not this could actually happen. It's not just some person's random opinion online about Trump taking a third term and what conspiracies they come up with as to how he's going to obtain that. So those are just a key few. I'll go through a couple more and then we're going to wrap this up for the day. Another really popular one that I think a lot of people probably follow by now is Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge does a lot of great articles, and they always tend to put out kind of interesting stuff that I don't see too many other websites putting out. So they do have their own unique um, niche that they carved out of putting out stuff that not a lot of people are talking about, which is a good thing because it's nice to see that you're not just reading the same things on every site. Um, that some people are putting out, different topics that are not as covered as much. Um, they put the DOJ, ATF kill zero tolerance policy that threatened American gun dealers. So this is important. I'm not going to read this, but I did just read their headline. You can read it yourself. I talked about this in previous videos about how the only way to really protect America from tyranny is through, obviously, through having the guns. It's mostly the militia, but it's the guns. And that if we lose the guns, it does not matter, what Trump does or what anybody does. The people will be susceptible to be conquered. With that said, a lot of people think, well, I've got a bunch of guns. There's no way the government's gonna stop me. They don't go after the people directly. They go after the gun dealers. And you could say, I already own my guns. Yeah, but you don't make your own ammo. You get your ammo from the gun dealers, or you buy it from the companies that manufacture the bullets, right? If they go after them, that stops the people from having the guns and the ammunition to protect themselves from outside invaders, domestic threats, or tyranny. That's how they do it. It's not coming after you and kicking in your door and stealing your guns one by one to 300 plus million Americans. It's going after the suppliers. That's how they do it. So at one point, uh, the ATF was cracking down under the Biden administration, making it harder for the gun dealers, and apparently they just, overturned that policy. So that's great. That's excellent for the gun dealers. I actually know some, and they, really struggled under the Biden administration with a lot of red tape they had to go through. Um, but really, honestly, they have no right, the government, to interfere with that at all. That's commerce, and it's also Second Amendment protected, so they really, have no right. But the people have allowed the government to creep their way into the Second Amendment as much as they could have over the last 100 or so years. So this is where we're at right now. Hopefully, one day, the gun dealers will claim their rights back from the government, but we'll see how that goes. Couple more that I want to show you. I'm just going to take a quick peek. This is a big one, Newsmax. Um, Obviously, you've probably seen Newsmax by now. They've been around for a little bit, and they've been doing a great job putting out, good media. This one's Trump talking about that he knows what he's doing with the tariffs, and personally, I think what he's doing with the tariffs is great. It's going to be hard for a lot of Americans. It's going to be very difficult for a while to go through that pain of the, price increases, but I also think he's setting some stuff up for um, taxes to where it'll even out for the American people, which is what I believe he's hoping to do long term anyway. And then you have One American News Network. You've probably seen this by now too. It's gotten very popular over the last few years. Rand Paul would make Doge cuts permanent.
Elon Musk's Doge cuts permanent as a recession package, which would only need 51 votes to pass the Senate. One America's John Hines has more from Capitol Hill.
Sir, I know that one thing you're very excited about is Elon Musk and what he's been doing with Doge. And you have come up with the idea. I don't know if you've introduced legislation yet, but I think you're planning to try to. All those Doge cuts are ephemeral. When the president leaves, of course, things change. So the idea is, I think a lot of conservatives like yourself would like to get this in legislation. What are you trying to do in that way?
There was a special bill passed in the 1970s called the Impoundment Act. And it told the president he couldn't impound money, but he could send it back to the state, back to the Congress through rescission. So rescission is a special legislative vehicle, and it's a simple majority vote. Because people say, oh, we'll send it back to Congress, and we know Democrats won't vote to cut $1. And that's true. They won't. But just with the Republican votes, we could cut spending. So my hope and what I've been advocating for is I love all the spending cuts Elon Musk is finding, what Donald Trump is overseeing. Send it back to Congress. The president's going to have to come and lobby for it with Republicans, use the force of his political presence to get us to cut money. And doesn't need it with me. I'm for cutting the money. But there's some wobbly Republicans that may not want to cut any spending. But I think if President Trump came and used the full force of his personality, I think we could get these spending cuts.
So that's his take on that, and we'll see if that comes to fruition. But I could see Congress probably making some of those cuts permanent so that we could, decrease the spending going forward and really alleviate a lot of these problems for the American people. Yeah, but that's it. I'll give you one more just for like business and finances, and that is Trends Journal by Gerald Salente. He puts out a great, bunch of content on, markets and different things going on with, financial elements of our economy, economic update, market overview. So you could definitely take a look at that stuff. So that was an overview of some of the websites. Again, majority of these probably lean right, um, or at least center right. But either way, and I do look at other media sources. I do look at some of the Democrat liberal websites as well, just to get their take on things to see how things balance out. Because every once in a while, conservative media is talking a little bit too much in one direction, and it's good to see the other direction. What I don't do anymore is I don't look at the legacy media companies that have been basically propagandizing the news and the media and information to the American people with, basically on behalf of the government or any government for that matter. I won't waste my time with that stuff anymore. And I know a lot of people still do because it's catchy, it gets eyeballs, and they make content on it, and they're able to, piggyback off of that media company. I just think it's best to sort of start phasing those companies out because they're not credible anymore and they've been outed as being propaganda. So it's probably best to just kind of, move away from them and let them go off into the sunset. Um, but that's just my take on it. But that was it for this video. Just wanted to give the especially younger generation some credible media sources to check out and to maybe start getting your news from them from now on. But also many others, not just these. These are just a few to take a little bit of a look into some different things that are out there. Because I don't think a lot of the younger people know this stuff. I think that they're mostly just scrolling aimlessly through social media and just like I said, seeing what people post in terms of like a tweet, random thought, an opinion, and it's best to maybe do a little bit more research and know a little bit more about what's going on in the world because, like I said, it affects our constitutional republic, and we need to be well informed in order for this governing system to continue and for this nation to heal and get better, so that we can get back on track to being the great nation that we once were. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Helps the channel grow. Put in the comment section topics you want me to discuss, maybe, a deep dive you want me to take. I'll take a look at it. I won't go into everything because I'm not really into looking and following every conspiracy theory, down a rabbit hole. There is some stuff that I know to be true, and there is some research that I've done deeply over the years, over the course of my career. So I will, talk about those things. But if you have something that you want to present to me, put it in the comment section. I'll definitely see if I could, do some content on it. But that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one. All right, everybody, I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son. And it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, Bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. We highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, buy a children's book as a gift. Definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state, and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, you may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms, Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories. Available right now, many different items on our storefront. If you can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall, 26 items, kitchen items, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throwing your own, occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you, put on a better party. Health and wellness items here, even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. But it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop, and these are some clothing items that we actually produced. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store, healthybodygoodssoul.com. Anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag, and it says free, and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids, backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two, and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms: Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post, and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future, and I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.